What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Bleav in Rams, presented by FanDuel. By the way, Rams second in odds to make it back to the Super Bowl. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that. We're going to look back. We're going to look ahead with Anthony Armstrong. You co-host Bleav in Commanders. You're a former NFL wide receiver. And when I asked you how the season was, you were like, it's been an interesting season so far. I mean, what was your pulse of the 2025 season as we look ahead, and how are you doing?
I'm good, Erin. Thanks for having me. Good to join you on the West Coast. The season, I felt like you've seen that meme where it was the ring coach for Rocky. He's like, just throw in the towel. That's how I felt for the Commanders, because it was just injuries after injuries. It felt like a mass unit. For a while there, it felt like a rude prank. You know, it's like, come on now, like who else is going to get hurt? So it was just bad. But I'm a guy that tries to look on the bright side of things, to try to find some silver lining. And I'm like, okay, so we've been forced into getting some young guys some reps. Now we realize you don't have that much depth. And so now you can have a little bit of clearer picture of how you want to address the offseason now. So, hey, maybe we have a little bit of luck like the Patriots and get to take advantage of a lesser schedule, and then, see if that can help them get to the postseason and beyond. We'll see, though.
You have to, right? In a lot of ways, the Rams kind of had that same theme, not this past season, but the year before. I had Jay Glazer, I'd spoken to him, and he said, hey, look, listen, sometimes when you're going through tough times, which they had issues with their offensive line in terms of injuries, he's like, those things actually kind of set you up weirdly for success. It shows you can work in different ways. You can navigate adversity, especially if it is a younger team. And the Rams kind of had to re-identify their offense when they lost Puka one of the weeks, and then they did 13 personnel. 13 personnel went crazy. Sometimes that actually does help when you have a little bit of adversity. It sort of calluses you moving forward, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. It tests you in areas that you don't expect. I think about it at practice. There's always been how I viewed practices. A lot of times coaches will script it for the perfect. This play is set to go against this exact coverage. And all the stars have to align. The coach has to call it right, scout it right, and then make sure everything aligns that way. But what if it doesn't, Erin? What if it doesn't? What if they run cover 3 versus this cover 2 concept? Now there's these variables that happen. And, I want to see people operate in that instance, right? If this play is meant for cover 2, then just it should happen like butter. This is the NFL. That's how those things happen. But when things aren't happening like you think, that's when you see the great teams really flourish. And that's how you adjust to the 13 personnel. Like that right there is going to take over the league. I bet tight ends all across the NFL draft are like, hell yeah, I'm going to get to play some more football, maybe catch a pass or two. But Sean McVay has always been on the front edge of innovation in the league. Him, Kyle Shanahan, that whole crew. So it's always going to be interesting how they cook up some new things.
When I was I always go to Super Bowl week. I love the opportunity to just network and hear stories of football players. And this one gentleman he'd only played for a year. He was a linebacker, but he said, people don't realize how smart you have to be as a professional football player. He's like, you have to understand the playbook, the in-play experience. But then he's like, people don't realize you need to know the 1 second before the snap, the in-game, and then after the snap. Like he just made it sound so interesting that you don't, as a fan or understand playing, how many different scenarios and how kind of just quick you have to be and adapt, right? And that was one of the themes that McVay said. Whether you're looking at Washington or you're looking at LA, it's just adaptability. How much for you was that something that you sort of did you always have that skill set as a pro football player, or did you have to kind of develop that as you matured as a man?
Yeah, I can tell you my path to the league was one of one, right? I was undrafted, but I went and played indoor football in Odessa, Texas first. And I skipped a week to go to a tryout, ran a 4.2, and then that was parlayed into 2 years with the Arena Football League Dallas Desperados. they were coached by a scout for the Cowboys. So it was like you're right next to the Cowboys. And I was thinking I would maybe end up over there. And I found my way to Miami when half of that Cowboys conglomerate went down there to the Dolphins. So for me, it's been taking advantage of different opportunities. But when I got to Washington, it was like, look, I play receiver. I need to know this entire playbook inside and out. I got so detailed and writing down every single thing Kyle said. He was like, hey, you're going to be in a +2 split. I got to get you to 17 to 21 on this deep dig because the quarterback's throwing it 2 yards inside the numbers after his 5-step drop and a hitch. He's, so all of this is going on in line. Like an NFL offense is like a finely tuned F1 engine. Right? Like if it's cooking, all those pistons are firing at the same time. The linemen are doing their job and it's cooking. But whenever one thing is off, that's when it can get a little bumpy. And that's when crashes happen.
Yeah, that's when you need to go get an oil change.
Absolutely.
You need to go see the mechanic. And it's not always, it can be expensive. And it's like take a look at some of the choices that you made because you hit the brakes too hard or you're driving too fast. You're running a couple
yeah.
When you say Kyle, you're referring to Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm assuming during that time was Sean McVay on the roster as well, coach? Yeah.
That whole Washington, that whole tree was there. So I got to see them come in as kids. And I mean, frankly, I was like, I'm older than some of y'all, but I'm like, you're coach, you know what I mean?
How cool is that? Must have been great. Do you look at that and go like, look at those guys now and you see how much what you learned when you were a player is now the future of these guys, these players, the coaching tree. I mean, the storyline after the Rams every season is almost like, okay, well, who's McVay going to have to poach now? Because so many of his guys end up leaving and taking head coaching opportunities. That's crazy that you were a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you didn't realize it because the on-field situation and results weren't good. The whole ownership thing was there's a lot more drama to where you didn't even get to see these guys shine. But I do know that when Sean took over the tight end coach job, John Hembry left to go take over Colorado, and Sean got promoted to tight ends coach. His tight end group was the most prepared. And I was like, that guy's got something else about him. Cause he was like in the elevator, Aaron. He's like, hey, Fred, look, remember here on this down, you're going to get this linebacker that's going to play a little bit outside. Okay. And you know how intense he is, but he's doing this at like 26, 27, talking to Fred Davis and Chris Cooley, giving them tests pregame. And I'm like, he's got a different level of preparation. So it was cool to see how that all worked out, man. I've been happy for all their success and was happy for him to go ahead and win them a Super Bowl.
I mean, that's really cool that you kind of knew he was special before the rest of the NFL did. I mean, and he's got such a unique lineage, right? His grandfather was the GM of the Niners, and then his dad. One of the things that's so, and we're going to talk about, the Rams one second, because sometimes I think these stories are so interesting too. Just before we get into the nuts and bolts, we'll talk about Kliff Kingsbury. We're going to talk about maybe Rams draft needs and what you think, Anthony. But, I always find it really interesting because even as a coach, I've had to have a few different as media moments with coaches, and some are social and some are very high football IQ, right? McVay is kind of both. And his father was a news director, or he worked in the media. Sean makes sure he understands every single reporter or media member's name. And oftentimes when we're asking him a question during a press conference, he'll repeat our name back to us. I just don't even recall the last time I remembered a coach really making sure to make people feel part of the story as much as his job is to just worry about on the field stuff. He almost has both charm, charisma, and the high football IQ, which is really unique.
Yeah, he's the total package. I mean, you could say it. He's the total package. He cares about the people, right? And he does care about the players as well. Like I just happened to listen to Michael Silver's book, The Why is Everything. And then, to hear that book was like, this is a whole other side of these guys I didn't even know. But he mentioned, he's like, if you're going to ask somebody to run as fast as possible into another human being, you might as well tell them why, why you want us to do these things. And it makes me, I unpack all those memories in those meetings where he's like, this is where you're going to line up. They're going to do this. And we want you to do this because it's going to affect them this way. And it just lets you play fast, right? You end up trusting those guys. And, as I'm sure as a media member, you're like, you know what, I'll do what I got to do to make sure Sean, is shown in a good light. You obviously do your job ethically, but, you see how Bill Belichick's got to wait a year. All right. People are getting on, but like, he should be in. I'm like, yeah, but we've seen before that the media members will show that if you mistreat them, they will make you wait. Same thing happened with T.O. Same thing happened with Bill Belichick. So whenever Sean McVay is eligible, I'm sure they're going to try to get him in there sooner as soon
Yeah.
as possible because he's been just such a nice guy. But he performs on the field. He gets his team to play at a high level.
Yeah, and he's the first one to take accountability when, this was really my first season sort of being inside the walls of the LA Rams, and everything he kind of says, he really does live by, which is the first to sort of take the blame when he, quote unquote, puts his players in a bad situation, which has happened, right? And let's get into the, I guess, first order of business, Kliff Kingsbury. I remembered when the news was starting to kind of leak out, Adam Schefter tweeted it. And I thought it was such an interesting, um, I'm always fascinated again by what the Rams are doing. They are cutting edge. I think you may have said that or described it as such. What is when you thought Kliff Kingsbury to LA, and obviously he was there in Washington, your thoughts?
Him going out there, Kliff's been he's been known to have a good impact on offense. He's a really good play caller. But what got him out of Washington was Dan Quinn wanted him to do something different on offense. He was looking for some sort of a different attack. And I don't know if they were just like, I'm not going to do that. But whatever reason it was, they ended up having a split. But Kliff fell into a good position, right? You get to go back and work with Sean. He's had a relationship with Sean, coaching against him in the division as well. But now he gets to go in and kind of retool his system and get to bring some more education and information over there. So Sean is a guy that's going to find out what are the best things that are already happening, and then how can we tool our system to take advantage of that and put our team in the best position to win. So it's going to be just a master class of information. I know Matt Stafford, that's going to be a Texas high school football conversations going back and forth. They're both from Texas. Kliff was a big-time quarterback down here, threw for a lot of yards. Matt, same thing. So that'll be interesting. I'm sure there's going to be some ribbon back and forth on that.
Yeah. So with LaFleur going to Arizona, some opportunities present itself or open up, and they added during Super Bowl week, they added Kliff Kingsbury. And I think when you look, Anthony, at the Rams, I don't know, biggest issues, would you say they're on offense? I mean, I think obviously they're looking to potentially, hopefully, whether it's free agency, which is coming up, or the draft, maybe look at some secondary, options in the secondary. I have so many questions about that just in general, but where do you think that the Rams need to kind of fix things on offense, and how does Kliff's sort of style of coaching, or the way he sort of like he did with Washington, how do you see that impacting LA and Sean's offense?
I think his impact, starting with Kliff's impact first, is you're going to have a new brain trust, a new set of ideas, at least new to this system. So just the way the league works is everybody's just trying to catch up to what you're doing. If you're ahead of the curve, then they're working from behind, and you get to stay ahead of it a little bit. So they won't know the tendencies and how this offense is ran with Kliff Kingsbury and Matt Stafford. They don't know how that pie is going to come out of the oven, if you will. But now you've seen these guys operate these past couple of seasons, and Mike McDonald, you got to think about what they're doing up there in Seattle. He's always ahead of the curve as well defensively. So you got to shake some things up, and maybe Kliff can help with that. But on offense, I think they just need to get ready for the future, right? The eventual things that are going to happen. You got players that are getting older. Matt Stafford he's 38 years old, been in the league for a very long time. Shout out to him for being able to do that. So you're going to need a quarterback eventually. You're going to need a receiver eventually. Puka's in the last year of his contract. Devontae Adams is about 33 years old, so you're going to have to replenish that. Then you could get a little help on the offensive line. I think it's always good to get a good offensive lineman, but they're sitting there with 2 draft picks, 13 and 29. So there's going to be plenty of options for you. So they're going to be able to fill the needs, but only one person on offense. Defense is where you got to go first.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Okay, so then, and I'm not done with you about Stafford. We'll talk about Puka and all of those things in a second. But when you look as a wide receiver and, being very familiar with the NFL in today's day and age, what's an easier – so look, they need to get a cornerback, right? There's some questions about, free agency. Some guys are going to stay, some guys are going to leave. When you draft, is it better to draft a cornerback, someone you can kind of develop, or do you think the Rams need somebody who's got a little bit of a proven track record, and you sort of target somebody in free agency, and maybe you use that draft pick one, whatever it is, and leverage that?
Man, Erin, I think you kind of gotta reach in both jars. You got an opportunity to do that. You got enough money to do that. Maybe you don't get the top flight guy. I think Tariq Woolen is the top free agent people are looking at, but maybe you're not able to sway him. But at 13, I like Mansour Delane. That's that corner out of LSU. Talented. He can play man. Get yourself a young guy, and you can still get a free agent. So Jamel Dean will be out there, a young fella coming out of Kansas City as well. So there will be some corners, but they don't want to have to rely on 2 rookies, I wouldn't think. But if you have a guy that's been able to line up in the SEC with Delane, he'll be able to line up in the NFL.
You touched a little bit on their needs offensively with the O-line and maybe looking at a wide receiver. What about on the defensive side of the ball? What's the first position of need you think that the Rams should start to look at?
Secondary. It's secondary, right? We got to get Mansour Delane. I think him at 13 is big. But as long as you got to deal with JSN, you're going to have to find somebody to cover him.
Right.
Like that's it, man. You're going to have to deal with him. I mean, you got to also think about what they do in San Francisco. They still throw the ball around, but that was their Achilles heel. Well, one of the Achilles heel of the season, right? The special teams was one thing. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah. I'm sure. Oh gosh, I know Sean is just hating looking at punts right now. Anytime he sees a punt goes up, he gets a little nervous twinge up his back. But it was a secondary. The DBs they did what they could, but it was like a Jimmy's versus Joe's situation. There's just more talent on the other side versus what you were able to line up. So they got to get better players. That's what they're going to try to do. So picking a guy at 13 will be big, and then maybe a veteran free agent as well. Just revamp the whole entire thing. Bring back Cam Curl. That's what you need to make sure you bring back, because he has been – I'm mad he left Washington. I'm mad they let him out of Washington, honestly. I just come back. Come back.
Right. Well, that's, that was one of the themes too, was how, guys – I mean, look, let's take Emmanuel Forbes Jr. He had – been highly touted, and he came out of Washington and things didn't kind of work out well. And there were moments of flash for him here in LA. And I really think it's a testament to the Aubrey Pleasance. Have you ever met Aubrey?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Well respected, really well liked. I sat down with him and we kind of had a nice heart to heart. I felt like he was coaching me. Like I was almost getting emotional because I see how he sees the best out of these guys. Yeah. And they really do flourish. And I think, and I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me on this, but I want to say the Rams defense was like the second least expensive. And if you think about, yes, they could have spent some money. They should have maybe gotten somebody in the before the trade deadline just to kind of add a little oomph to that in that division, no less. But they didn't, and they managed to try to make it work. And obviously, if you're Sean McVay, you're not going to the Super Bowl. It still doesn't track and check out. But it's interesting to hear how much you miss Cam, because I think he was very well embraced here in Los Angeles. Yeah. Yeah.
A physical presence at safety. It just, it makes defense or offenses determine where they want to go with the football. You know what I mean? And that's a position of need in Washington. They brought in a couple of guys, but you're still looking at, hey, we probably got to get a safety. Might be getting somebody on day 2. So
Yeah.
yeah, if y'all don't want him anymore, we'd gladly bring him on back.
I
Bring
think
him on back over. He can hang. He can hang with us.
yeah, I think you're happy here in LA, or at least I hope so. Because yes, I agree with you. Okay, let's shift gears because I want to be respectful of your time. Here with Anthony Armstrong, Bleav in Commanders, host, co-host, former wide
Oh
receiver
yeah, all
with
of
the NFL. Had a really cool. I love your story as an undrafted, and you got Harrison Mevis, who was a special teams massive contributor. He was a kicker here, and he ended up being very clutch. And he's a free agent. So, and he has a really cool, he was like, I think he was undrafted and he was cut by the Panthers and I forget the other team. Oh, the Jets.
it.
And the Rams picked him up and he was, I think he was 100% on all of his extra points. Maybe he missed one free field goal. I can't remember, but it feels like it's all a blur, Anthony, after the
Oh
season.
yeah.
You're like, wait,
Oh yeah. You just gotta flush it. Turn the page. Turn the page. Right. We can turn the page now. We're
yeah.
looking forward, Aaron. Looking forward.
So when you look at the wide receivers, you said maybe pick somebody up. Tutu Atwell, I mean, have you have you thought about him at all in terms of, he got this huge contract, $10 million, and he was in a lot of moments a healthy scratch. Are you familiar with him? And like, what do you think might have been, if you're understanding of maybe that situation, what do you think what do you think that was? What do you think happened?
Man, one time when you make the money, your production has to live up to the dollars that are made. But I know for certain with the McVay offense, they're going to run the ball, which means as a receiver you have to be able to block and you have to be able to hold up in that role. And I haven't looked at the tape. I know Tutu's a fast guy. He's a deep threat. He is a burner. But I don't know how he holds up in the run game. Can you put him out there every single down and make offense or defenses really believe that you're going to run the ball, or is it just a trick situation where you got to go deep to him? So maybe it's that type of thing. I mean, I know he's going to get to maybe a new team in the offseason, and hopefully works on developing his route tree. Right, you want to be able to run more routes, find a way to be on the field more often. You got to be able to block some safeties. Blocking cam curls not easy. I've been knocked on my ass plenty of time by safeties, so I get it. But I feel like once you lose your coach's trust, be it how you're executing on the practice field, in the game, whatever it is, it's tough to get out of that doghouse, Aaron. It is tough.
Yeah, I know. And I did interviewed him a handful of times and he just had, such a great spirit about him, attitude about him. And it's just hard when you maybe you're not earning you're developing into the contract that you earned. You got, he had this huge $10 million deal, which, speaking of big contracts, a guy by the name of Puka Nacua expected to get a big contract. First and foremost, does he get the biggest contract among wide receivers right now, just because that's kind of how the structure goes? And then also, if you're the Rams and, I get sent, some of the videos and I'm like, oh, come on, guys. He's like, what, 24 years old? Where do you fall in line with the concern about paying your big wide receiver when he's had moments of, I wouldn't even say frustration, but just moments that he could probably do better or be a less emotionally immature at times, or whatever it is that happened with him?
Yeah, I know this much. In the NFL, what they care most about is the on-field performance, and then we can fix the character things. And I remember seeing one thing happened. He was kind of around some mixed company and got coerced into some certain things that, frankly, I didn't know was bad. So now we all know, right? Now we all know, and the key is that we don't repeat those mistakes. But the guy is a baller. I mean, he is who they run their offense through. He lines up everywhere. He is a complete receiver. Physically, he can block. He can catch the ball downfield. He'll go across the middle. He doesn't care. So I think he's going to get his money. He's going to get his money, and it's going to be interesting how they structure it, though. But because you got to think, the good thing for them is that if they get a really good rookie quarterback, they'll already have their perennial receiver, their franchise receiver there. I mean, you see how tough it is to try to win when you have an inflated quarterback contract. So, hey, they kind of get to work in an opposite. So whoever you bring in, you already throw it to him, and that starts your day. And you're going to be a pretty good quarterback in this league. But I will say, I got to point out that the Rams, they're going to get a receiver somewhere in this draft, and they do a damn good job at drafting late. Puka Nacua was a fifth rounder. Cooper Kupp was a third rounder. So it doesn't have to be a first round pick receiver. So whoever they select, you're going to be like, who the hell is that guy? You'll be hearing about him all summer long.
Yeah.
On Bleav in Rams, matter of fact. So that's where you need to lock in. Erin's going to follow whoever they draft all summer.
Yeah, no, and we'll we'll hear about your thoughts when they do draft him, of course, because and that's the thing. Real quick, as we look to wrap up, you said it, they're going to draft a quarterback. I mean, when you think of a 38 coming off an MVP campaign in Stafford, there's not a lot of data to support someone who has I guess maybe Brady is the only one. I think Brady got the MVP at 40. I think, don't quote me on that, but like he's the only one, right?
Yeah.
I guess, you do have to plan for the future. It's not very easy. I don't wish to be the person having to make those decisions, but don't you think that that's going to be so interesting to watch this season as they try to continue to value, respect a Matthew Stafford, who's just in all the ways a exemplary football player. He's humble, he's talented, and he works well with McVay. And yet they need to plan for the future. Don't you think that alone is going to be just really fascinating to watch?
I think it will be, but the cool component about it is Sean has a previous relationship that he gets to lean back on and think about, okay, let's not go down this road. I'm talking about the whole situation with Jared Goff. I know that was a whole trade and thing like that. So I think when you mentioned the respect for Matt Stafford, I'm sure they're going to make sure they handle the situation appropriately. I wouldn't expect any crazy surprises. They're not going to trade 2 1s and jump up and steal Mendoza or anything like that. I don't see that happening. But they're going to pick somebody, and I think they'll be very vocal and be open and honest with Matt about what they're doing. What will be interesting is to see what he does after this season. Is he going to try to linger around like some other quarterbacks have done, and then they kind of have to force him out of the door? Or is it just going to be a peaceful exit? He gets to go sit out there on the beach, enjoy a little Mai Tai, and watch the sunset over the Pacific.
Yeah, I'm sensing it's going to be the latter because, Stafford has just really done such an amazing job developing that offense, bringing young guys like Terrence Ferguson, the tight end that they drafted last year, along. And really, I think getting the sort of sentiments from his 4 girls, which we've watched every Sunday. We're like, oh my gosh, that's why he's like, he's got to win the MVP, not just because of the stats alone, but because of the story behind his life as a father, and really as just an awesome guy to be in the room with when you're interviewing him, going through adversity and challenges. And the thing that McVay always would say was, I wish I could have done that with Goff. I mean, and he doesn't specify it specifically, but he's like, I could have been better. So you're absolutely right. I think he's learned how to adjust and adapt during moments that are not always easy when you're dealing with people and you're dealing with humans. And you're so great, Anthony. I appreciate the time because I know you know about Kliff, and now he's here in LA. I was always so curious, like, how's this offense going to change, or what's it going to look like? So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be watching from a distance, you know what I mean? But holler at me if you need me to come back anytime. Glad to.
Yeah, no, thank you. We've got free agency on deck and then the draft, and it'll be real interesting. So Bleav in Rams. Stay tuned for what's next, but also Bleav in Commanders. Anthony Armstrong, we appreciate you. Thank you again.
Appreciate it.